Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. You may wonder why I'm in these kind of clothes. It's like my Gilligan's Island clothes. Do y'all know who Gilligan's Island is? I'm in these clothes because it's Sunday and it's chill day, right? But I did, have some thoughts this morning I wanted to share with you in this video. So today's video is going to be about the power of addiction and the addiction of power. If you like that's our topic today, please put it, please put a like and then also share if you think it's going to help somebody else. Okay, so getting to the point. And remember, these are my own thoughts. I'm not a doctor trying to tell you these things. These things are from my own experiences and my own coaching practice, okay? So I want to address, first off, of course, the power of addiction. This month, in 13 days, I'm going to have 28 years clean. That means from alcohol, drugs, all kinds of stuff like that. Now, addiction can be like a whack-a-mole. There is a transference of addiction, and I've had many of them. There's a few I still have yet to, but I'm, the fact of knowing that I am an addict. So some of you watching this may be dealing with an addict yourself. Oh my gosh, I've got that fan on again. Hold on. Did we resume? Yes, I do believe we have resumed. Okay. So, the power of addiction, they say it's cunning, baffling, and powerful. Addiction comes in a variety of means and ways. I work with people with food addiction, people addiction, codependency, because I found out that that's what was underneath my own addiction, just because I got free of alcohol, drugs, all of that stuff. That was only if only I could quit doing this and I would be normal, right? But I wasn't. I still had problems with people. People still got on my nerves, and I still wanted to please people, and they never seemed to be satisfied enough. Anybody else? So I'm working with people lately on codependency, because I myself had realized, after I've had 20 years experience working with codependency myself and with others. So that's an underlying issue, right, of why we do what we do. Because let's face it, most of us with our addictions, there were people involved, right? They taught us how it was a learned behavior, a lot of it. In the homes we grew up in, like I had the food addiction, but I learned that I could battle the food addiction with drugs. And then I could be sexy and everything else. Then have love addiction, right? What we perceived as sexy. Then I could have love addiction. And underneath all of this is some codependency. Just wanting to be accepted, The thing is what people are learning, and what I had to learn in codependency, is that I was actually manipulating people with people-pleasing. That's trying to control. Because underneath power, nobody's powerful without control, are they? Right? So it's that power. And we want to think we have power. And even after we get clean, we want to think we have power. The thing is the first step talks about being powerless over our disease, whatever we perceived it to be, whichever one it is right at that time. I have a friend that calls the addictions, the diseases, whack-a-moles, because obesity or food addiction is a disease. Obesity and addiction are both diseases. It's not something we can just control. See, here comes that control word again. It's not something we can just control. A lot of addicts try drinking, trying to be normal, and then only end up back to using. A lot of people trying to drink, like that's why I don't even drink. I really liked smoking weed, but I can't control myself, because once I start smoking weed, I smoke it all day, every day, and I start getting thirsty, then I start drinking, then I start getting sleepy, then things go in my nose or down my throat, and I'm out of control. So if you're dealing with an addict, that's what you're dealing with. Is we used to live and live to use. That's the saying, So to give you some insight, if you're watching this video because you're trying to learn how to control an addict, a lot of times people trying to control an addict are enabling the addict instead. This is again where we get into codependency. Is that when we're trying to control other people and we think, if I just do this enough, if I save them this time, then, I'm going to have control over them, and then next time there won't be a next time. We have a saying in recovery, how well is that working for you? How well is it working for you? Our best thinking, we talk about our best thinking. So even just removing the drugs, the alcohol, the gambling, the sex, the whatever, there's still this underlying issue, and we want control. A lot of us in addiction, we gave up our control in self-sabotaging addiction. It's like, okay, it's that, I don't care. Putting something in our mouth, right? I don't care as long as it's okay. I don't care. I'll get high and it'll go away. I don't care. I'll have another one of these. I have power when I have money, so I'm gambling. These kind of things. I have power when I have sex. That wasn't pretty, was it? So anyway, you get the idea. So it's the different ways that we try to control, that we try to manipulate. And a lot of us are afraid of owning that because of that codependency of thinking that they're behaving like this, so I'm going to behave like this. They're behaving like this, so I'm going to behave like this. It becomes a game. You get to some point in age in your life, hopefully, where you don't want to play games. I know for me, that kind of hustle is over. I do not want to play games. I ain't about playing. I tell people, Stacy, don't play. I don't play. That don't mean I don't have a sense of humor. It doesn't mean that I've given up a life of, all of this, because I know if you're an addict watching this and you're trying to learn how to control, because a lot of us come into these 12-step programs trying to learn how to control. We just want to learn how to control. And we don't get to control our addiction. Not like that. We're powerless over our addiction. However, we do find power within ourself and ourselves and our soul once we can dig that shit off of our soul. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff on our soul that made us think that we were less than, made us think that we were as important as, made us think that we were a piece of, and so we have to learn how to give up control to some things. The wisdom to know the difference. If you go into a 12-step group, they're going to say the serenity prayer. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things that I can, which is whether I put anything into my body that doesn't need to be there, whether it be food, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it is that we put into our body that doesn't need to be there. And being able to claim and have power over our own body rather than running on those, obsessions and compulsions. And if you're dealing with an addict, ask yourself, am I obsessing and compulsing over their behavior? Because that's definitely codependent, if you didn't know. They sometimes send you to Al-Anon, but Coda is a good avenue too. And sometimes we've just been trained to be that way. We saw our parents be caregivers, or some of us were actually caregivers for our parents. Making sure that they felt okay and comforting them in their times of need. I spoke to someone the other day that they were calling the pharmacy at 9 years old for their parents, and everything. So everyone has their own experiences, and maybe you were trained to be codependent. And when we don't know what codependent is, because when we become so independent from having to help others, we think, oh, I'm independent, I'm not codependent. The problem is that when we want feelings from outside of ourselves, and you may or may not want to claim that, but when we're codependent, that's what we want. Because maybe if we're too busy taking care of other people, we've never been validated. We've never been, really felt compliments of a sincere nature, if only unless we were helping somebody else. But from our accomplishments, you see, this is where we build real self-esteem, is from being able to have support in our accomplishments, and people to help us. But when we're codependent, sometimes we're enmeshed. This whole family is just enmeshed, and they're only doing things for each other in the family, and have these expectations of somebody else doing the same for them. So maybe if you're dealing with an addict, you want the addict to get clean, so they'll do the same thing and appreciate you. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. The thing is when you work on yourself, you get to learn that this is an unlimited universe. And you get to help more people than just that one person who keeps letting you down time after time again, because you're probably enabling them and not helping them anyway, because you're telling them, this is what the thing is, you're telling them that they're not good enough to do it. You're reinforcing that for them to help them keep feeling like a piece of you know what. I know you didn't want to hear that. Sometimes I have to tell people the cold, hard facts, the cold, hard truth. Now, when they're putting forth an effort, when they're getting their recovery on, whatever that looks like, then it's okay to help. I'm not saying don't help at all, but I'm saying if you're doing the same thing expecting different results, that's just insanity. And that's if you are using, and if you're helping, enabling the user, the person who's using. Because you're trying to control them, they're trying to control their using so that they can make you proud. It's not that they don't want to make you proud. It's that these are cunning, baffling, and powerful. And when you think about it, you're trying to make them proud too. So it's the same feeling, but is it healing? So you asking yourself and going within yourself instead of being controlled by another person's addiction. Because some of you are controlled by another person's addiction, maybe. So asking yourself, am I controlled by this person's addiction? Is my helping? Because sometimes helping isn't helping, and that's not just only an addiction. Because sometimes when people are clean and we're helping, it's not helping. Because we want to help people have a self-esteem. So that comes from encouragement. It doesn't come from doing it for them. It comes from encouragement. Telling them, I know you can do this. I have so much faith in you, and I know you can do this. Because that is, I talked about being normal, like drinking. That's what normal people do, is they just encourage each other and watch each other thrive and they're happy about it. You see, in our addiction, we get to uncover those jealousies when we can't be happy for someone else thriving, when we have these jealousies. I had it, and I had to learn to turn my jealousy into admiration, because really that's what it was in the other end of the spectrum. Is there's jealousy over here, and then there's admiration. Do I want to be jealous and feel bad, or do I want to be in admiration and say, yeah, look at them, look what they did. I have my own gifts and talents too, but that comes from developing our esteem, from learning to love ourselves, make those choices to not self-sabotage. So, sometimes in a 12-step program, you get a sponsor, someone who believes in you and wants to help you in your recovery. Trying to do it ourselves just never works. It didn't work for me. I tried all angles. I grew up in this disease, so I knew intellectually what this disease would do. So that helped my elevator not to go as far as some of the others in my family, But it didn't keep me from having addiction just because I got to see it. That's the intellectualized, right? Is that I know, and I'm not saying you don't know, but until you feel it to heal it, it's feeling it to heal it. I had to sit with my jealousy, and I had to be willing to tell somebody about my jealousy, because that's embarrassing and it's shame-filled. But once I could tell somebody, the secret was out. And it's these secrets, those are the things that are buried on our soul. So, and the power, the addiction of power. Sometimes when we just get clean and we're like, okay, like I did the 12 steps. I went in the 12-step program, and then I thought, okay, I got this now. And I didn't pick up again. I did not. But I could tell you, when you hear this term white-knuckled, I was white-knuckled. My jaws were clenched, and I was trying to control a whole lot of things, you see, because I was trying to control some things I knew nothing about, and to be willing to be honest that I really don't know about this, and open-minded to take somebody's suggestion and willing to try to do something different. So that's how they say the how and the foundation. I'm not just trying to promote the 12 steps to you, because that's the thing, is that people who are in the 12-step groups, they're like, I wish everybody could get this, and everybody can get this. And I do promote the 12-step groups, but I don't promote it. If you feel like you've got a real problem, the cool thing about 12-step groups is that you get to go in there and get real hugs. But since COVID, a lot of the 12-step groups and all kinds of things are on the internet. I do not recommend getting an AI sponsor or an AI therapist. I have a love-hate relationship with AI. And if you're looking for somebody to co-sign your bullshit, then get you an AI therapist or an AI coach, and because they're going to go with what you feed them. somewhat, or what somebody else has fed them, but they're not going to go with sitting with you. They're not going to be crying with you when you cry, like your sponsor will or your coach will. That's the cool thing about a coach rather than a psychotherapist, because the therapist can't cry with you. But a coach, can have those feelings, show those feelings of compassion for you, So these are some distinctions for you to know, because sometimes we just have these things made up in our mind that we know what it means, and we may not even know what these things mean or what they are. And when I sit with somebody and they've done the same things I've done, and I felt so much shame about it, but I see them and I see their feelings, a part of me gets to heal, because I have more compassion for somebody else, or had more compassion for somebody else than I have for myself. But through that melting process, because when I'm working with people, I'm always talking about this protective shield that we've put up around ourselves, with our self-sabotaging, and it's caused us to build this wall of blocks, that we have so much shame, that shame that I'm talking about, that's built on our soul, that we try to control with that self-sabotaging. Is when we get to feel uncomfortable, it's like, I'm going to go for whatever my addiction is, trying to control it. But we end up feeling worse and worse, putting more on our soul, like those blocks or bricks, but we also have the blocks and bricks outside of ourselves. And it's sad, because we want to be seen, we want to be heard, but we don't want to be seen, and we don't want to be heard. So when you hear me talking about polarities and the things that we're feeling, is whether you're on the end of trying to control an addict, or you're an addict trying to control your addiction, or you're an addict that's clean and you're trying to control other things, is that we still need help. Like I said, I'm going to have 28 years on the 14th. My last time out was a Friday the 13th, 1997. I was trying to score some Bon Jovi, go to Bon Jovi in New York. That's what I was trying to do, but instead I ended up in Dallas in a blackout, having to get people, my mom, my brother, my ex-husband, and my children come pick me up in Dallas. That's what I got from my addiction. I'm so very grateful for those people who scooped me up off that front porch and got my family there to me. Every year that I'm sober and clean, I'm grateful for those people, because something bad could have happened to me. My dad told me all my life growing up, something bad could happen to you. So it's erasing those old tapes, because something good happens to me. Something good happens to me and through me these days. Okay? And that can happen for you too. So I'm going to close with the Jimi Hendrix quote, one of our other fellow addicts who didn't get to find recovery. But when the power of love overcomes the power of the love of power, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. So I wish you much love and peace. And if you're in your addiction and you need help, I do recommend the 12 steps if you've tried everything else. Why not? If you have gotten clean and you're not using the 12 steps and you're trying to control a lot of things and finding yourself lockjawed and white-knuckled, maybe take suggestions from somewhere. Get a coach, get a therapist, get somebody who knows about addiction. Because we do get addicted. The whole thing underneath addiction, whatever your addiction is trying to have control. And the more we try to have it, the more we sabotage and elude ourselves, if that makes sense, right? And then if you're trying to control an addict or trying to control anybody, really all we have control over is ourselves. When I'm teaching people boundaries, I tell them the first boundaries we need to set with is ourselves. Not to people please, not to do this, that we're going to love ourselves. Set boundaries that promote self-love. Because we probably just didn't learn them. So it's unlearning some of the things we learned. So again, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. And I wish you much peace and love. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And if you need a coach, I'm available. I can coach you. So please just email me in the descriptions, and the email's in the description box below if you need coaching sessions with me. And when I'm working, I don't have my Gilligan's Island clothes on. All right. have a super Sunday or whatever day you see this video, okay? All right. Love and peace. Thank you. Bye.